So many people are looking for clarity, purpose, growth in their lives. And the best way, or one of the best ways I found personally, is through the power of coaching. And this is why I'm so excited that I'm sitting down together with the CEO of the International Coaching Federation, Magdalena Mook. The ICF is the largest global organization dedicated to advancement of the coaching profession. Welcome and thank you for being here, Magdalena.
Thank you so very much for the invitation.
This conversation today is going to be about future of coaching, what coaching really is, what coaching isn't, why it matters, and how it transforms people's lives. And I'd like to begin this conversation with maybe a little bit of a personal story. Magda, how did you discover the power of coaching for yourself?
Yeah, it's not a very linear story. However, it just started when I accepted a job with the International Coaching Federation. At this point, not being very familiar with coaching, and of course, at that point, not being trained as a coach. However, the organization, which started growing internationally quite rapidly, looked for somebody with the international experience, which I happen to have from my previous jobs. So very early on, I did receive an offer to work with professional coach, and then I was lost to the world
Mhm.
because this experience of working with professionally trained, well prepared coach was just so eye opening, and yet it was only the beginning. I'm still friends with my very first coach. And not a long time ago, I called her and I said, Beth, I have to apologize to you. She says, for what? I said, I was not a very available client because I think the client grows with the experience of coaching, is open to more, is willing to experiment more, and a coach is the catalyst, that guide that takes the person with them and provides some safety and security to do so. Since of course I am trained coach, I've been trained with the College of Executive Coaching, and I also am a trained systemic coach, using coaching skills every day in my role as a CEO, and just loving every single day of it.
Love it, love it. So let's go. Maybe let's go back to that first exposure to coaching with Beth.
Mm.
And coaching is often a series of many conversations. So, was there a particular conversation that stood out for you that changed everything for you?
I can't think of one specific conversation. However, the series of them definitely gave much greater clarity to my own thinking and challenged many of my assumptions. One that I tend to repeat to my colleagues at work right now is about delegation and assessing people's skills and abilities. So in one of the conversations, I am just little upset because there are so much stuff going on, and I don't know where to find time to do everything and do everything well. And Beth says, well, is there anybody in an organization that you can delegate it to? I'm like, no, they're
Mm.
all so busy. They're as busy as I am, maybe more. And then she looks at me and very calmly says, did you ask? Well, I didn't. She says, you're making an assumption. And the assumption is that they are so busy. And the assumption is that they would not possibly benefit from that different assignment. She says, your job as a manager is to grow people you're working with. You're grooming them for the next position and giving them greater responsibility. Of course, have their back, but give them that responsibility with authority, but let them tell you if they can or cannot do it. Don't make that assumptions for them. So that brought to me forever since, kind of like, don't assume, check,
Mhm.
just check.
That's fascinating because conversation often is about a question. And then coaching is often about the finding the right question at the right moment, and then the answer to that it reveals to a person what the blind side might be or what the answer is, because the answer oftentimes is on the inside.
It is, and for me in coaching, and of course I all the time work with professional coaches as well, uh, being my coaches. Um, it is also that sometimes the greatest revelation, greatest insight comes later. It does not come during the coaching session. It may not come to you, but as you reflect, as you think about it, then you come to certain realizations that are a result of that session. And I have a colleague who also works with a coach. And when we're talking about powerful questions, he said, sometimes it's not the powerful question. Sometimes it's the reaction of the coach. He said one of the most powerful moments in one of his sessions was when a question was asked, he gave the answer, and the coach said, hmm. He said that he thought about that for a couple of days afterwards to find some very unusual insights into what he said, what the question was, and what realization he came later. It is a process. It is a process. It's not just about asking questions. It is a process about leading a person through that coaching process of establishing the goal, of taking through the questions, of deciding on next steps and the accountabilities that come along.
Mm, interesting. So let's maybe break down what coaching really is. So a lot of people, of course, would know coaching from the sports world.
Mhm.
And the person who's a coach, whether it's the team coach or the individual coach, of course, he would be a mentor and would be a trainer, would be an instructor, and would be a cheerleader, and all of these things combined. Right? So we all can relate to this one way or the other. When we refer to coaching, um, what do we mean? What is coaching?
Magic, of course. That's the simplest definition. No, jokes aside, coaching is a partnering relationship. I think it's very important to stress out partnering because none person in the conversation and coaching relationship is any more important than the other. The the client is an expert in their life and in whatever they bring to the coaching relationship. The coach is an expert in that coaching process and is responsible for guiding the client through it. The coach is accountability partner. The coach is a person who is expected to push, to probe, occasionally to challenge. So, coaching is that methodology that allows an individual to find their own answers to whatever issues they may bring to the attention of the coach. We know from psychology that when we told what to do, we innately don't want to do it. While when you come to certain conclusion and certain decision yourself, you're already bought in. That's what you want to do because it's your idea. So the coach helps navigate finding that clarity and clarity of ask and then clarity of action to move from certain point to the destination that is a desired one.
How much coach does need to know about the specifics of the situation of the coachee? Whether in the professional sense or in the personal sense, like if you are a business coach, then you need to be a successful business coach yourself. If you're a relationship coach, you have to be perfect in your own relationship and so on. If you're a health coach, you have to be in a perfect shape and so on. Like how important is that the coach is an expert in that field themselves?
Actually, at ICF, we believe that it's not necessary. It may be important from a client perspective, but it's not necessary. And sometimes it may be to the detriment of the health of the coaching relationship. Let me give you an example. I have a colleague who's a coach who worked in healthcare system for years before he became a coach. Funny enough, majority of his clients were also individuals from healthcare because they were looking for somebody with that experience. And he said that at first it's great. It's great because this is the same language. And then he also noticed that their conversations stopped being as deep as they needed to be, because the client would say, well, you know how it is in healthcare. And he was like, yeah, I do. Because he did. Rather than exploring, I know what it was for me. I don't know what it is for you. So let's explore deeper. So there are some blind spots that may come with familiarity with either the field or the position. Now, the client um, desire is still very important because that's the instantaneous build of trust. And in certain geographies, one has to be a credible person to be even considered for being a coach. So it is not unimportant, and yet to be a really fantastic coach, one does not have to have that specific knowledge. Let me give you one other anecdote. So uh, this is a very high level um, CFO, I want to say, in one of the Asian large companies. And he's been working with many coaches. He's happy to work with coaches. And his HR professional says, would you consider working with a young coach? He's like, well, why? I need somebody with a CFO experience or a C-level experience, and preferably in finance. And she's like, would you try? So he said, okay, let's try it. First 15 minutes of this coaching relationship conversation were probably one of the most frustrating for him, from his own account. And then he thought it was the best session ever, because whenever he would say, like, you know how it goes, the young coach was like, I do not. Or it would be like, those regulatory bodies, you know how they are. No, I don't. And at the end of a session, this executive said was that he was forced, for the first time in since he remembered, to explain the business, his job, and the business of the organization in a terms understandable to just anybody and everybody, just a regular person on the street. And he found it extremely powerful and transformational because he found the language to talk to his own employees, language that did not exist for him before.
Mm, this is such an important message for both coaches and then for those who are looking for a coach, that I think is going to liberate
Yes.
a lot of people, so that to find the right coach, you don't have to necessarily look for the yourself.
Yes.
And
Yeah,
and,
that
and
brings
you know,
blind spots. That certainly brings blind spots. And another interesting tidbit that we're seeing is that more and more younger people are exposed to coaching primarily through their organizations, corporations, institutions that do offer coaching. So they are younger, and they ask for younger coaches. And this is quite anecdotal, but they say that they very much respect their mentors, their managers, but for the coach, they want somebody who understands their reality. They want somebody that they don't have to explain who a Swifty is,
Mhm.
or they don't have to explain, certain circumstances of still after college sharing a flat with five other people. That's what they want, because this is the space they don't have to explain, while the coach understands that that's the background into whatever issues they are working on. As I mentioned, I'm systemically trained coach. Nothing happens in a vacuum. So being able to bring that part of a system to a coaching conversation, knowledge of how we live, seems to be quite powerful and important for our younger clients.
So the coach is an expert in the coaching process. he or she doesn't have to be an expert in the field,
Correct.
although some coaches find that it's useful,
Sure.
but it doesn't have to be. So often coaches bring other what we call modalities, and they are often have prior experiences. Sometimes they are also trained therapists. Sometimes they are counselors or consultants or mentors. Would you help us differentiate what is coaching versus mentorship versus counseling versus advising versus training? All
Hmm.
of these other
Hmm.
modalities and how they all play together.
Right. First statement is they do play together. Sometimes we recommend that are not being mixed and matched, but let's take them one at a time. Mentoring typically assumes that there is a student and a master. So somebody very experienced, somebody who's parting their knowledge with the less experienced colleague. There is a hierarchy there. While, as we said at the beginning, coaching is partnership, partnering between coach and the client. Um, Therapy and counseling requires much different level of knowledge, and it is actually in many countries, as you know, licensed profession. So this is very important that coaches do not broach into the areas where they are not having appropriate training to do. To your point, many coaches did come or still come from the with the experience and licensing in therapy and counseling. For us at ICF, we strongly suggest not to mix those two modalities working with one client because it may be very confusing to the client. However, it's quite common that an individual will work with a counselor or therapist and the coach at the same time. One of the best statement I heard about it was a person who was in therapy, and she says, "My coach helps me deal with very painful. Excuse me, my therapist allows me and helps me deal with a very painful past, and the coach helps me sustain healthy habits." So very beautiful division of responsibility and also very clear line for that client of who's responsible for what. Um, you also mentioned giving advice uh, and or consulting. Little different, and giving advice has a bad reputation in coaching world. It's like, oh, no, don't go there ever. However, in core coaching competencies, we always say that the coach has every opportunity, when appropriate and useful to the client, to share knowledge. So if the client is stuck and the coach knows something, has an example, has, I don't know, book to suggest, or has an example of working with another client, that would be irresponsible not to bring that knowledge to the conversation. However, it's far cry from saying you need to do this. This is not coaching. This is not coaching. It may be consulting, and frankly, as we talk about the many clients still looking for certain experience coming with the coach, it is okay to also mix and match coaching and consulting as long as a client and the coach have a super crystal clarity that that's what they are contracting for. So if both parties understand that their process will include coaching and consulting when and if appropriate, with proper separation between the two, then yes, we know from research that coaches typically, your average coach, typically have two or three other jobs or modalities that they offer. It could be research, it could be training, it could be consulting. So it is not unusual that the coach would have in their repertoire those modalities, and when and if useful to a client, they may offer it. but again with crystal
Mm.
clarity that this is not coaching at
There
that
might be an
moment.
interesting distinction now, drawing the parallel from the sports coaching world into other areas of life coaching. In sports coaching terms, often coach acts as a trainer. Tells what,
Absolutely.
here's what you're going to do. Here's how you train for this particular specific sport. Whereas in other types of coaching, you don't tell them what to do. It's a, like I said, it's a partnership. It's a process. It's a discovery.
Yes.
And sometimes clients ask for questions and they're seeking for information on what I should do, and that's appropriate to share your advice, and not advice. You share
The
information,
knowledge, yeah.
information and
Information,
knowledge.
knowledge, absolutely.
Um, but it's really important to kind of see the lane, like where the coach swims, and then when you switch in the lanes between, okay, so now I'm putting my therapy hat, I want to put in my advisor hat. Is that okay for me to do so?
Right, right.
And so that would be very appropriate
Mm.
way.
And it is also an interesting conversation because many people come into coaching, they do come for results. That's what they want. They want outcomes that would help them better the place that they are right now. And coaching, as we said, coaching is a hard work for a client. It's a hard work for a coach, but it's hard work for a client because that answer, that outcome is dependent on them more so than on the coach.
So who's a good candidate? Who's the right candidate for coaching?
Anybody. Um, we've been doing a lot of research at ICF to see if there is if there are characteristics of a perfect coach. But like with any other profession, and we like to call ourselves a profession, if we say it is a profession and we're having means and ways of teaching it, then anybody can become a coach if they perfect the core coaching competencies and the coaching process. Now, would some people be more innately skilled? Most definitely. But again, it's not any different than with any other profession. Not everybody can be an artist. I can be an artist. I can draw a straight line. Um, but I can do flower arrangements, right? I'm not going to be a painter, but I can do flower arrangements, and that's a little bit the same with coachings. There are people who are just absolutely um, predisposed. A lot of them, a lot of those elements are reflected in core coaching competencies: active listening, presence, being able to challenge, being able to listen with empathy, but not cross too far that our empathy will stop us from actually providing that challenge to the client.
Mm. So anybody can become a coach, and then there's some core competence. Of course, they need to be adhered to, and then they also, of course, need to be certified and go through a reputable program. So I want to come back to this, um, but a bit before that, I want to touch on the client side.
Mhm.
Who is a good candidate for receiving coaching? Who is that also anybody?
Ah, I wish. We do discuss that concept of non coachability. Basically, as we said, partnership, but the disposition for coaching relationship to be successful is the willingness of the client to be in that conversation and to be open to whatever outcomes may be discovered during that relationship. If somebody is set on absolutely not changing anything they do, then it's probably waste of everybody's time and energy to try to coach somebody like that. You may recall that when coaching was first introduced, it was considered remedial. So you had a problem, you got a coach. So that was not necessarily a good sign, right? But this is another area where when somebody is pushed or forced to coach, building transparent, trusting relationship is very difficult. So to some extent, one of the very important elements of successful coaching relationship, trust, is being eroded before it even started. So we always say that you can't quite push people's to coaching, they need to have the willingness to at least understand the process and then to enter into that relationship.
So broadly speaking, a person needs to be coachable, and then being coachable means being open.
Yes, being open and being, to some extent prepared for some surprises.
And being open to do the work.
And very much, this is the most important piece, because the work has to be done by the client, not by the coach. The coach is an accountability partner, but not the one who does the work.
I want to come back to the point where we said in therapy you have to be licensed, you have to go through years of training, and how coaching. So a lot of people might say that coaching is anybody can call themselves a coach. And I suppose it's true. There's no legislation around it, so anybody can label themselves as a coach, whether it's formal profession or just a coaching that what I do at work and
Right.
things like that, right? But it's not all unregulated exactly. So there are standards, and of course, ICF is the organization that provides those standards. So, um, can you talk a little bit about how the industry is regulated and what standards are in place and codes of ethics are in place, and then so what coaches go through to become certified coach?
Yeah, coaching is considered an unregulated um, profession or field. We like to call it self-regulated. And as you already mentioned, ICF sets standards for professional coaching. We accredit training providers, so individuals can go through a systematic training to learn about coaching competencies, codes of ethics, and the coaching process. And then the obvious sign of professionalism is when individuals seek and obtain their coaching credentials. ICF offers 3 levels of coaching credentials, and they require different level of education, experience, and also the evidence of coaching. So
And these levels are
ACC, PCC, and MCC. So associate accredited coach, professional coach, and master coach. Um, and as I said, there are different levels of requirements for education, experience, and evidence of coaching. And our credentials are renewable, so every 3 years people have to renew their credential. So this is an obvious sign that somebody was willing to submit themselves, not only meet the criteria, but submit themselves to an independent organization, as ICF is, to be evaluated for their coaching skills. What is very important is that ICF does have the process. It's called ethical conduct review process. So if the client is quite unhappy with the conduct of their coach, they can report such situation to ICF, and the board of peers will review that behavior and determine if there was a breach of the code of ethics, and can impose different level of um, uh, actions, including stripping somebody of the credential, or even removing them from the organization. ICF works well with other coaching organizations, and we cooperate on different shared documents, if you will, and definitely shared philosophy. For example, with our European colleagues, we jointly submitted the request to the European Union to be considered a self-regulatory body, and we successfully managed to get that designation. So it does not mean that somebody will not try to regulate coaching, but at least we have this level of legal protection right now to remain self-regulatory.
so if you come across a coach who has one of the designations ACC, PCC, MCC, so you know that they are accredited and they're certified by the ICF standards.
Correct. Correct.
And how many ICF credentialed coaches are there in the world today?
Oh, close to 60,000. Maybe even today is 60,000. We're just watching the ticker because we're extremely proud of this kind of reach. And we have credential coaches in over 150 countries, which is quite tremendous.
60,000, but has not always been that way.
Oh no. When I first joined ICF 20 years ago, we had about 1,000 credential coaches, and the program got upgraded dramatically. We are aligning our credentialing system with the ISO standard for organizations issuing credentials to individuals. But one has to remember the credentials, although very much badge of honor to the coach, credentials typically are designed to protect the public. Because the public, knowing that somebody holds that credential, they know that that person was evaluated. They know that they reach certain level of proficiency, and they know that there is certain level of not certainty, but the good uh, probability that this individual will provide a great service to the organization or to the individual. So credentials are really, really important. And I think the fact that we grew to 60,000 credentials in relatively short period of time is a testament to the fact that the client, the purchasers of coaching really value that credential as a sign of excellence.
Yeah, it's almost like a stamp of approval.
It
But
is.
of course, there are coaches who don't necessarily hold the credentials from the ICF,
Correct.
but they are certified by other reputable organizations,
Certainly.
many of which are those organizations are credentialed or accredited with the ICF as well.
We consider that definition a little bit differently because when somebody, for example, finishes their coaching school, like when I finished mine, I received a diploma, if you will, from my coaching school. But that diploma does not carry the international, frankly, global weight of the International Coaching Federation credential. So even though I do have that degree from my College of Executive Coaching, it does not mean that this is equivalent of ICF coaching designation. It's almost like an umbrella for the coaching profession, with addition of some other coaching organizations that also issue their own credentials.
Mhm. So, for somebody who is looking for a coach, when it comes to credentials, what would somebody look for? Like, does it have to be like I'm looking for ICF certified coach, or it doesn't have like you? I mean, you might be biased, like,
I
or
am biased. I am biased, and yes, ICF by far is the largest um, organization with the largest number of people who hold active credentials. So I think that this is a first pretty safe step. If you're looking for a coach, check if they hold a credential. And again, I'm certainly very proud of credential of ICF, but yeah, check if they have a credential of any other independent organization. And by independent, I mean independent from the one that you receive your training from.
Okay, that's a good distinction. Okay, so aside from the credentials, so what else would I look for a coach? Like, how do I find the right coach for me?
There are different ways to seek coaching. ICF does have the directory of our credentialed coaches, where you can put a lot of different keywords. You can write an RFP. You can put different definitions of who you're looking for, and then you will be matched with individuals who created their profile that resonates with your criteria. So this is definitely one way to do it. What we hear is that many people still just ask around their colleagues, friends who worked with coaches to recommend somebody. In organizational settings, often organization partners with a specific organization that offers coaching at scale. So these are all different ways of trying to find a
Mhm.
coach.
Mm,
Many coaches, apparently, they again anecdotal, but we hear that many coaches get their matching through LinkedIn.
mhm, mhm. It's certainly one of the areas where we enable people to find the right coach through our platform,
Right.
Dream Coach Match, and we find that the visibility for coaches plays such an important role in being able to democratize the world of coaching.
Yeah.
So aside from the tools where you can find a coach, just the characteristics, I guess, and like what aside from again from the credentials, what would be important to look for is experience, like I said, maybe yes, maybe no. Like if you want somebody who's got relevant experience in your particular field or your particular situation, would what would be other criteria to look for? Trust, trustworthiness, um, ability to relate. Like, what are those kind of like checklist, if you will,
Sure.
for people to
Some
go
are
through?
very practical, and the others are more esoteric. So, practical are yes. Do you want that experience? You may also think about the level of credential that individual holds. You may think about, well, price for the engagement. It could also be the language that you would like to receive coaching. It may be the methodology of delivery. Do you still want to do it in person? Are you fine with virtual? Are you fine with mixture? So these are kind of practical ways to look into that. The other ones like trustworthiness and presence, things like that, this can happen in two ways and should happen in two ways. One, always ask for references, so you can maybe chat with somebody who worked with that coach. And a second, we recommend to interview at least two coaches, actually three, before you determine who you want to work with, because this is where that chemistry check happens. And you may build immediately that trust and intimacy um, with one person and not necessarily with others. There is a caveat to it. There is some very interesting research coming from Rice University, where their hypothesis is that we like to work with people like us. So so nothing's wrong with that. However, it may create a little bit of the circumstance for the coach not to be as maybe demanding. Coaches have to
Mhm.
be demanding, but when you really like each other, maybe you're not
You
as,
become a friend.
yeah, you become a friend a little bit too far, because again, nothing's wrong with becoming friends, but crossing maybe that line of being an accountability partner.
Mm,
So that's something interesting to keep in mind, saying like, I need to hire a coach that will challenge me, and that may become your primary objective. So when you interview the coaches, you would like, this may be too,
mm.
this too
So
sweet
you want to
person
stay
maybe.
close, but not too close.
Yeah, you want to get out as much out of the coaching relationship as possible. So recognizing some elements that you may have to work on is important also in a choosing of a coach.
Mm. And what is possible when you work with a coach? Let's paint that picture.
Everything is possible. Everything and anything is possible. It's very interesting to see what people are working on, because sometimes it's a very um, singular issue somebody um, works on. Could it be, should I move to Toronto or to New York City? And some are more like, how can we change the education system in Angola for the betterment of their people? And both are absolutely fantastic um, opportunities. What I think is happening in coaching relationship, which is the most phenomenal, is that the self awareness of a client just blossoms, and every change, every possibility moving forward starts with self awareness. So when you do have that self awareness, then you probably formulate your goals differently, and possibly you have a different outlook of exactly what's possible. I'm going to channel my colleague and friend who was on the board of directors of ICF Foundation, who said whenever we say, "Oh, what's possible?" He goes like, "No, no, 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 no. We need to think about what's needed,
Mm.
because what we think is possible is not enough. We have to think about what's needed and how to close that gap between what we think is possible and what's really needed." And coaching can actually support that kind of little bigger picture thinking, so that our actions and our plans have in mind that what's needed rather than what's
Such a
possible.
big mindset shift.
Yes.
So you do lots of research and lots of industry wide publish different papers. And so, what do you see in terms of how many people, organizations have coaching, how coaching has grown, where it's going? So maybe try help us paint a picture of where the industry is at.
Yeah, yeah. We actually just released the sixth global coaching study. That's the program that we continue doing from since 2007 with PricewaterhouseCoopers. The last one was released in 2023. And we know that the coaching profession, defined by number of coaching professionals, continues to grow. Since 2023, it grew by 17%.
Annually. Oh, it's in
Since
2 years.
2023.
Okay. Mhm.
It grew 17%. And right now we're talking about 123 coaching professionals in the world. Now, one has to remember that how we define coaching professional is somebody who predominantly utilizes their time on coaching,
Mhm.
50% or more. And we also talking about people trained in coaching rather than those who are perhaps calling themselves coaching without proper training. So again, memory lane. 20 years ago, when I first started working with ICF, we had 8,000 members. Right now, ICF alone has 62,000 members. So as you can see, that growth seems to be almost snowballing. We see more and more coaches joining marketplace every year. And in my opinion, it is predominantly because of organizations utilizing coaching. Not that many years ago, even in an organizational or corporate setting, coaching was reserved to C suite, chosen few. While now, when we talk about building coaching cultures in organizations, you see that much greater numbers of employees are afforded access to coaching. There could be onboarding coaches. There could be coaches for high potentials. There may be coaches for first time managers, and so on and so forth. But the scale of utilizing coaching is significantly greater, which in turn creates demand for more coaches to be trained and join the marketplace. To me, one of the most proud statistic is that, as I think I mentioned, ICF has coaches in 150 countries. That means that it is a global phenomenon. And I give it to the founding mothers and fathers of ICF. ICF was predominantly North American when it was first formed, but they insisted on the name being international. And when the question was asked, but how? They said, we don't know, but it's going to happen. It's going to happen. And it did happen. And I think that this is fantastic, that again, this is not modality available only in certain parts of the world, but rather it grows and continues to grow everywhere in the world.
Mhm. And if it, and as much as it has grown and snowballed, like you mentioned, if you think about anyone can benefit from coaching. There's 8 billion people in the world, and then if there's 120,000 coaches,
Right.
and every coach maybe can touch lives of, I don't know, 10, 15, maybe 50 people. So you do the math. So we can only touch on what million, just a little over. So there's a lots of room to grow between a million and 8 billion people.
Yeah, I think that this is very important, and also I think we have to think about it a little bit differently, because coaching is not a silver bullet. In many occasions, there is other modality that may be better, maybe training, maybe mentoring, maybe consulting, right? However, access to coaching, and that access meant from the perspective of who can work with a coach and also who can become a coach. This, I think, is something that we need to continue paying keen attention to. Can everybody benefit from coaching? Yes. Would everybody want to work with a coach? Probably not. But that access, the knowledge,
Mhm.
awareness of coaching, and the access, these are the two elements that I think are extremely important and what ICF is working on as well.
Mhm. So tell us a little bit about more initiatives that allow in more access to coaching. Um,
Yeah, there are many, and I'll mention only the ones of ICF, but of course there are many other organizations doing similar things and individual coaches. We do offer through ICF Foundation the Ignite project, which brings coaching to not-for-profit organizations around the globe and working with the leadership of those organizations so they can deliver better service to their end customers, if you will. We offer scholarships to become a coach in certain parts of the world for individuals who are very interested, but perhaps otherwise would not be either able to afford or otherwise wouldn't think about becoming a coach. As I said, coaching in organizations, which ICF has a special division for, is growing exponentially, and coaching is being brought at scale to many of those organizations. And again, our belief is that when somebody is exposed to coaching, that stays with them. Partly it is a ripple effect because they start acting a little differently with their families, with their coworkers, with their communities. But also, they are now aware and familiar with coaching, and chances are they're going to engage coach either personally or professionally again when they see the need. We do a lot of publicity for coaching, even releasing studies like we do. We do the coaching awareness study with PricewaterhouseCoopers as well, my favorite study ever, because then there we hear from customers and not from coaches. So we see that there is a growing awareness. Many schools, universities start utilizing coaching as a support mechanism for their students and for their faculty. Uh, at the university level, there is a hypothesis that coaching supports leadership development skills in the students. So there is even this coalition called Unicon. There's a coalition of about 118 universities offering executive management education. They all engage in leadership development, often utilizing coaching. So there are many different little pockets of activity, and yet, to your point, there are still people not familiar with coaching, thinking that coaching is something it is not, scared of coaching, assuming they can't afford coaching, or assuming they don't need coaching.
mhm. So to help the profession grow even more and to help people really transform their lives, so if you look at coaching and then all the stakeholders who are involved, coaches, coaches, organizations, what do you see as biggest levers for? Okay, let's paint the picture first. So, what would it take that 5 years from now, 10 years from now, it would be as common to have a coach as to have a personal trainer or a
Mhm.
family doctor? So, what would have to happen between now and then at the coaching, at the level of coaches, at the level of organizations, and in the minds of people?
Yeah, I tend to believe that it starts with the mind of people, so a demand side, because we can support much greater numbers of very well trained coaches. But if there is not a demand for their services, then we're creating a vacuum for them. So this is why ICF engages a lot in public facing campaigns promoting coaching. We do this International Coaching Week. So all of our chapters are engaging in promoting coaching in their respective localities, um, and there is still a little bit of a work to be done on the stigma of coaching. Coaching, as I said, we have members in 150 countries. That does not mean that coaching market is equally mature in all those different countries. In many, we still have to explain almost from the very beginning what coaching is, while in locales like United States, Canada, Western Europe, it's like I have a coach. It's like, well, of course you have a coach. It's not even a surprise or a question. So that's one thing, growing that awareness of coaching, what coaching is and what coaching can do for an individual and the organization. And the other one is that access, and access also means pricing, because many people would assume that they cannot afford coaching. that is that's already not correct, and that's the awareness that we have to grow. As we have greater number of coaches, it's like in any other profession, somebody fresh out of training is not charging the same as somebody with 20 years experience. We mentioned that younger people prefer younger coaches. They kind of match each other at their level of income. So there is dispelling some myths about coaching, but bringing it really at scale. And that is a little bit of a tricky conversation, because we want coaching to be a lucrative profession, and at the same time we want that access to anybody, those who can pay very very hefty dues, versus those who perhaps live on very little income as well.
Mm,
So that's a systemic conversation that is happening. And it is time, I guess, to bring AI to the
mm,
conversation, because AI, in fact, is helping with the access for transactional coaching to masses,
mm,
and that may support that vision of ICF, vision of your organization, to bring coaching to, so that everybody who wants
to
it
everybody.
could have it.
I would definitely want to touch on the AI. We'll come back to that. On the topic of pricing of coaching, there is conversation about what coaches charge, but there's also conversation about what result are you getting. So what is the ROI on the investment? Because working with a coach is not just for the process of working with a coach, it's towards a specific result.
Sure.
And then the value of that result is better be more than what you pay for. And then in many cases, and I'm sure you've seen it many, many, many times, when the cost of coaching is just a fraction of the result that coach helps you achieve that. So can you speak a little bit about that?
Yeah, ROI, of course, is an economic term, and precisely looks into the return of monetary value. While with coaching, often it is return on expectation, which eventually down the line can be translated to the actual whatever currency we're using. But most time than not, the coaching relationship primarily focuses on communication, on better teamwork, on confidence. These are not translatable immediately to the dollars. We're in the United States right now, so we have to wait a little bit longer for those outcomes, and then use some proxy measures to indeed um, see what was the actual return. Return might be a great return, might be enough as satisfaction of a person saying, "I'm happier now." Again, not very monetary term there. But what is important is, when the goals of coaching relationship are established, is to talk about how we're going to measure a success. Otherwise, it could be very difficult to arrive at the end of the engagement with, yes, I got as much as I paid, yes, I got more, or I think maybe that wasn't worth my time.
Mhm, mhm. So that the non-monetary value is of course important, uh, and it's recognizing it that this was worth it for me, because like how do you put dollar signs on health, on relationships, on
Right,
happiness,
exactly,
and on
exactly.
feeling good, on feeling at peace, like feeling confident and being able to perform with knowing that this is an alignment of your with your own values,
Sure.
and all of these things definitely direct results working with a coach. So how important it is it's to specify the result that you were creating as a partners with a coach. Like, do we let the result emerge as the part of the process, or do we define this is what I want? Let's get there together.
What we know from research is that typically there is a goal in mind. However, when you discuss it with the client after the relationship ended, they would often say that they gained some other things that they didn't even think about when they were establishing their goals. There are, so for example, if the goal was greater physical activity, or maybe more from professional standpoint, better time management. Yes, I am better at time management. And guess what? My family is happier because I'm talking to them more and I'm not barking at them. I'm actually talking with them. Or I find better ways of forming my questions and my tasks. And again, that makes my coworkers so much happier because they can respond immediately and precisely rather than several back and forth because my request of them was not clear. So there are many things that happen on a periphery of specific goal for coaching that it's important to capture. It is important to capture, but I think it is good to have the goal because then you can have specific actions going towards that goal, and then to measure either that goal has been accomplished and how to sustain it.
Mhm. And then do you find coaching engagements are most like how long the coaching engagement should last? Like, is that one conversation? Is that five conversations? Is that for life?
Of course, there are averages that don't mean anything, right? We know the averages. Average coaching relationship is between 3 and 6 months. And oftentimes, people who do have coaching experience will engage in shorter coaching relationships afterwards. In other words, they already know the process, they already know the drill. So, from the first meeting, it is a deep coaching conversation. Then, 3 conversations may be plenty. I got what I wanted and I'm ready to go. We are also talking about because there are people who work with coaches for years. Having said that, that sounds little, maybe not great on the surface, but what it means is that maybe they talk once a year because coach becomes a trusted advisor to the trusted person to talk to their client. What we are cautious about is not to create dependency. In other words, that the client starts relying on the conversation with the coach so much that they
Mm,
seem to be paralyzed and do not want to make decisions of their own without talking to the coach. And from a coach perspective, that they are so attached to the client that they don't see maybe that creates a dependency for them for the income and for the professional
because at the end of the day, it's
positioning.
about empowerment and taking the self-responsibility
Right.
for your actions.
And
Yeah.
this is true for both client and the coach, which is reflected in our code of ethics, that each has a right to leave the relationship or to end the relationship, especially from the coach perspective, but also from client if they don't see any movement towards the agreed goals.
Mhm. Does a coaching conversation always have to be one-on-one?
No, team coaching is currently becoming very very popular, and the uptake on coaching, team coaching is fantastic. ICF released team coaching competencies a couple of years ago. As of last year, we have an advanced certificate in team coaching, and more and more people become trained and become utilizing it mostly in organizational setting.
So team coaching would be appropriate within the context of an organization, and outside of the organization, the group coaching would be a format where everybody is
Which
working towards the same
Right,
common goal,
which is
right?
a little different, team coaching
Yeah,
versus group coaching, but both are quite popular, and I think that's great because when only one person is being coached, then it's maybe even slightly arrogant to think that that person single-handedly could change the entire culture of the organization or bring the desired outcome. When the group shares that desire and then start using the shared language, then the success is probably more in a range.
yeah, wonderful. AI.
Yes.
It's hard to have any conversation these days without touching on that in one way or the other. What do you see happening now? And we'll get into a little bit of predictions, 3, 4, 5, 10 years out.
AI is here and is here to stay. AI entered the field of coaching quite a long time ago. And maybe we didn't even know this because like so many coaches use assessments. That's AI. And now there are very specific applications of AI to the business of coaching, to support the coach, to train the coach, and also to support a client, being it individual or organizational client. So these are all um, developments which we believe are very, very positive, and AI supported coaching also brings scale, brings scale that was not available um, so far. And there are some great products on the market already that it's hard to determine if it's a human coach or if this is an AI coach. One of my colleagues used that statement that AI coaching is transactional, while human coaching is transformational. I would actually wholeheartedly agree with that. And yet, many people, especially those exposed to coaching for the first time, transactional is what they need. So AI at scale can offer that introduction to professional coaching to them. This is anecdotal, but we're working on a couple of research, and that is that first of all, young people they rather do something on their phone and talk to an AI coach, and conversely, very very senior people, because they want to test some of their maybe risky propositions, not with the human but with the machine. However, after introduction to coaching via AI, more and more people are very willing, much more willing than before, to engage human coach to have this more deep, transformative conversation.
So it could be almost a value ladder where you
Yes,
start with the transactional simple questions, get yourself in very non-committal, high committal environment where you ask questions, and maybe you start even for entertainment purposes at the beginning, like to see what AI can do. And then as you go deeper into the conversation, you start uncovering really deep topics.
yes,
That's where AI might have some limitations, at least at this stage of the game, and that's where you need absolutely a human interaction.
that's right. We, of course, are very cautious about the ethics of using AI in coaching, primarily in data collection, data storage, use of data, and confidentiality. So at ICF, we actually have a director of AI, and we do quite a lot of research about ethical use of AI in coaching, as a support to our coaches, but also for the clients to understand if they are uh, purchasing AI coaching what questions through platforms or otherwise, what questions they should ask, what is the red flag in that conversation, what they should not agree to, and so on and so forth. It's a new frontier for us, and of course the field is developing so quickly that we finish one report and we may start writing it again because the technology is already a little bit further.
Yeah, it's hard to imagine what will happen 2 months from now, let alone years from now. But if we put the future hat on, 2030, 5 years from now, are you optimistic or pessimistic about the role of AI and human coaching as it relates to coaching specifically?
I'm very optimistic. I think again that with good boundaries that we're responsible for, jointly responsible for setting up, we can have a lot of breakthroughs and especially scale and access. And that's what we both said is the very significant mission and vision for our organizations, to have coaching available to anybody who wants it. What it means for human coaches, I think, is it could be twofold. So this is where crystal ball splits in half. One may be that increased use of AI coaching, as we just said, creates demand for human coaching. Conversely, it may mean that the number of coaches may not continue to grow as exponentially because certain level of coaching that is done now by humans will be done by AI coaching. And for organizations like ICF, that means that our standards for coaching have to evolve as well, and probably be at the higher level than they are right now.
Yeah, I think it will up the game for everybody
Yes, yes,
because
which is
the
good thing,
transactional low level things will be done,
right?
already being done
It's
by
already
machine.
been done by,
Yeah.
yes, yeah. But I'm optimistic. I think, well, back to your point earlier, look at the number of people in the world, and coach per capita is still very, very low.
Yeah. So on that topic, so in terms of accessibility coaching, you are a big supporter of the Global Coaching Summit that's coming up in November. And what makes you excited about events such as this Global Coaching Summit?
Yeah, it is exactly opening up coaching to significant number of people who, as we said before, may not know what coaching is, may be mistaken about what coaching is, may be scared of it, may think they can't afford, may think they don't need coaching. So letting people experience coaching, letting people learn more about it, I think is absolutely fantastic way of creating greater demand and kind of movement to your point, coach for every person. And that is exciting. That is exciting, because it's gonna happen only at scale. One person at a time. Yes, we do see a growth, of course, but it would be lovely that we could accelerate that growth. And I think the summit is one of the tools to do that.
So for those who are still on the fence of joining the summit or not, so what would you tell them?
Well, come first of all. uh, Come because you may learn of something that is becoming mainstream. You may become of something that is available already and can literally transform your life. And knowing that it exists and you not using it, maybe the summit will help you decide which way you're gonna go. And certainly, my hope is that you decide to work with professional coach.
Wonderful. What is there a specific mindset that you would want people to bring to the summit? That one of curiosity, one of skepticism, or
Well,
one of
curiosity,
open heart, open mind? Like,
open heart, open mind always. I think that this is a good mindset for anything. Curiosity, absolutely. And curiosity always comes with little skepticism. And that's a good thing. Because we need to make decisions for ourselves, and that decision needs to be informed. Seeking information is curiosity on one hand, but also skepticism. If you hear something it's too good to be true, or maybe a little bit too lofty, it's good to explore and find that level, that core level of confidence, that that's what you want to do, either to be coached or to become a coach. My huge recommendation to everybody, based on my own experience coaching for yourselves before you may even start thinking about becoming a professional coach.
And it's free to join.
There you go. That's the fantastic part of it as well.
Wonderful. So I really appreciate your time, and you being the biggest, one of the biggest supporters of Dream Coach Match platform. And we share our missions to make coaching accessible and to everybody in the world.
Certainly, and then we are proud of your organization being a business partner of ICF, and I'm certainly very curious about the summit and how it comes about.
Yeah. Thank you. Thank you. This November, we are hosting the largest global stage for coaching. With the support of the International Coaching Federation, we are bringing world class leaders and the world class coaches to help you not just hear about coaching, but experience it. Join us for 4 days in November 6th to 9th. It is free to join, so I'll see you at the summit.